So you've been isolating. Life just feels like it's too much, and the easiest, most comforting thing for you to do right now is to just pull back and be by yourself right now. But what I've learned is that isolating can feel like it's productive given what you're going through, but in the long run, it ends up holding you back when you've done it a little bit too much. There's so many reasons on why we isolate. There's so many other coping mechanisms that are in the coping mechanism of isolating. And then there's also the choice that we have to make to decide, is this something that I want to keep doing? This is about isolating in an unhealthy way that is not productive to overcoming what it is that you're avoiding. I'm telling you, I know how hard it feels to be in this space. It's like wanting to have the relationships that you dream of having and connecting with the people in your life that you absolutely love spending time with and love being with, but not being good here and here, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, even financially, to be able to show up in the way that you want to, because you're just not there yet. You're going through a lot, So isolating can be something that you do due to internal and external factors. So I broke down a multitude of them, and I'm sure you might fit into one reason as to why you're in this boat like a lot of other people. So reason number one, it could be your mental health. So struggling with depression, anxiety, or low self-esteem. And when you are depressed or very anxious, it can be hard to want to expose yourself to people, especially if you have social anxiety too, because you don't want to risk the feeling of being judged, being misunderstood, having to explain yourself, having to be a little bit more open and talk about why your energy is so low. And so you want to kind of just pull back and do you. And when you have low self-esteem, it could be changes in your physical appearance. It could be a health condition that has caused changes in your physical appearance. Or, I have a best friend that has been going through depression, and it looks like not hearing from them for weeks, for months, and I've had to grow to really understand that has nothing to do with me. That's a whole nother conversation. But to be as understanding as I can, because mental health is valid. But I remind them, you have to communicate with your friends. But I know that when you're in that place, it can be really difficult to communicate and say, hey, I need space, and hope that people will understand that you don't have a time on when that time is. If you've been that friend blowing other friends off, communicate with that friend. Or just at least acknowledge that this is something that you struggle with, and letting them know that. Isolating can feel like it's really protecting you, but it's also important to recognize that it can be keeping you from the support that you need. You don't have to do this all by yourself. You don't have to do life alone. You have people that love you and care about you, and even if you don't, you have me. I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this, but isolating isn't a way of fixing your hurt. It is a way of avoiding it. And the longer that you avoid something, the longer you postpone your healing and addressing something, the worse it gets. Breakups, fallouts, drama with friends, family, or a partner can bring you into isolating, because it just feels safer to not put yourself out there to get hurt again. A lot of the pains that we go through are here to serve us lessons. They're here to develop us. And if we so-called want healthier relationships, and we want these deep connections and the love and the support, the connections that we desire, right? We have to be willing to go through the weeds. We have to experience pain sometimes in order to get to those fulfilling people that are going to take up space in our life and meant to be there for good reasons. I found myself in a breakup that I should have never even been going through in the first place. And with friends that I was overlooking a lot of red flags, I've had to get real with myself and where I've gone wrong in, a lot of the things that I have gone through in my relationships. And I've also had to reassess how I was choosing the people and what I was choosing to give my energy to. I don't feel like I have the space for friendships right now. I don't have the space to pour into people the way that they deserve. There will come a time to know that if you want that love, if you want that deep connection, if you want those friendships, you're gonna have to be open to new experiences, new people. And that's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be easy. So when life throws us major changes like a job loss, a career switch, it can feel like we have lost ourselves or are losing ourselves and feel lost in life, because a lot of us, it's very common that like to have our identities so attached to what we do for a living. And I know that sometimes this can make us want to kind of just pull back from people, isolate, because it just feels like we need some time to find ourselves again. If I'm by myself, maybe I will rediscover who I am. But if you're not intentionally and actively like sitting with yourself and finding those new ways to rediscover who you are, you're gonna be stuck in this cycle. Maybe you're going through a creative block. If you are going through a career change and you want to become an entrepreneur, there's just all these different side hustles to pick and choose from. It's so overwhelming. You want to do social media, this, that, and the third, but there is a lot of fears. There's fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of making the wrong decision. And so that just keeps you stuck and not taking action. But you think, okay, well, if I'm just, in this stillness to myself, maybe the answers will be revealed to me. And sometimes you're just not meant to know what the answer is. Sometimes it's just gonna be under God, the universe, whatever you believe in, divine order, to really discover that. For me, I've already said it, that I've been taking a break with modeling. I mean, I don't know when you're watching this video, maybe I'm back to modeling, but switching from modeling to now doing YouTube has been this whole identity crisis for me almost, and I didn't really realize it because I just felt so stuck for so long. I'm just like, everybody has been following my modeling journey, people have been following me for years because of that. So what happens when I try something new? What happens when I talk about the things that I've been wanting to talk about for years? I've always said I'm more than a model. I have a voice. What happens when I use it? I'm scared. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, who am I when I'm not? Insert your job title. And so staying in this can delay this new chapter for you too. You might think that you just have to have that retreat and just be to yourself, but really sometimes when you're experiencing life and you're out in the world and you're connecting with people, or literally just connecting with yourself more, then you will find the answers instead of avoiding it with your coping mechanisms that you do in isolation. So some people have a lack of social support, and maybe some people are experiencing loneliness too. When you are far from family, far from friends, maybe you recently moved out of state, out of town, to a new city, out the country, it can feel very isolating in general when you don't have a strong support group. And maybe you do know some people, maybe there are connections that you have made, but you just haven't found your tribe of people yet. That is normal and that happens. And if you also have social anxiety, or you're a little bit more introverted and it's just more comfortable to be to yourself, that can be a huge reason as to why you want to isolate and just be to yourself, not be bothered, not have to go through the uncomfortable feeling of going out into some sort of social setting and putting yourself out there with a potential friend, or friends. There could be a lot of nerves around that. I haven't found my tribe in LA just yet. That is okay. I feel like a lot of people try to shame you, oh, you're the one with the red flag if you don't have a lot of friends. First of all, that is just the most surface level thought. That is thinking here. The iceberg is under the water too. There is a lot more to why people don't have their tribe yet, and it's very normal to not find your tribe of women until you're in your 30s, your 40s, whenever you're supposed to find those friends, you will find those friends. If you want to challenge yourself, if you want to do one thing, you can take a class, take a ceramics class, take a paint and sip class, go to a workout class, go where the people that you want to be friends with would be. You know, like if you have friends, where do your friends hang out in their free time? How are they intentionally spending time by themselves? How are they intentionally spending time with their friends? And go to those places. I hope y'all are enjoying this video. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. So even though isolation can feel like it is this comfortable and safe thing and the best decision for you to make right now, by staying in it for too long, we get stuck in the comfort instead of stepping into the fear of the unknown, into that discomfort, you know, stepping into change, because it's really change and challenging ourselves that gives us our greatest breakthroughs. It's being radically honest with ourselves. I started with why we isolate because awareness and acknowledging something is that first step. But this video still has a lot more juice packed in it, because a lot of people need to get real with their coping mechanisms too, and how damaging it is. And this is something that I've had to like constantly try to overcome and let go of. But when you are just to yourself and you ain't seeing nobody, you're not doing nothing, and you're avoiding you, and you want to feel numb and numb your pain, even if it's not like a conscious feeling like, oh, I want to feel numb, I'm thinking too much, this is too overwhelming, we start to do these things. There are a lot of nuances to these coping mechanisms, and it's not to be confused that you just should not be doing these things at all. Everything in moderation, healthy balance with everything. Sometimes we have these periods, but sometimes those periods happen so that we're just like, holy crap, I had a lot of that I can't keep doing this. Let me stop, let me change my habit. A very chronic problem right now in society is doom scrolling. Doom scrolling is just chronically being online for hours and hours and hours and not being able to stop, or being very much in denial about how much you're on your phone and how you can't just sit with yourself and be with yourself. Another way is like avoiding being alone, so constantly being on the phone with a friend, always on FaceTime with them. Maybe it's a family member and you're just always sitting on FaceTime. Drinking, overeating, smoking, doing edibles, Mary J. So let's glaze over these as the sun is beginning to set and this video will soon be over. Doom scrolling, it's a way to jump out of our own life so we could look at other people and what they've got going on. There's just this constant distraction. It's just constant stimulation. So the drawback with doom scrolling is that it creates a lot of self-comparison, and even if you're not somebody that is comparing yourself to other people online, it's still not good to just be constantly going on Instagram, constantly going on TikTok, scrolling through your feed. Like, it worsens your mental health, it ruins your dopamine levels, and it actually creates a lot of disconnect. You're not in the real world. This is not real life. We once didn't have phones, guys. We once used to just sit around and be bored. Instead of like going from my phone when I feel stressed and overwhelmed or a little bit anxious, I go outside and I touch grass. I do some breath work. I write out my journal, write about my feelings, instead of scrolling on my phone for endless hours in TikTok rabbit holes about P. Diddy. And then there's like the chronic FaceTime and phone calls thing. I've had periods of this with like two of my best friends, and it felt so good. It felt like everything that I needed. The talks we'd have, the breakthrough moments that we'd have, like just the connections and that we'd have, it felt amazing. But I will say that constantly having to do this all the time, it's like a way that you and that person is running from being with themselves. You know, if you're, you know, far from family and you're setting up these dates and this is something that you do often to catch up and stay connected, that's beautiful and that is necessary. But if it is something that if it's a crutch, when you feel any stress, overwhelmed, anxiety, fear, whatever, and you can't sit with that and just be with yourself and to yourself and deal with your own emotions, then that person becomes like you become emotionally dependent on that person. When they don't answer, you're just so disappointed because you need to get those feelings out. I love voice memoing and doing video diaries. I've been documenting my life since 2018, and I just sit in front of my iPad or my phone and I just talk. And you will literally doing that, you will realize how much you will feel better just by talking out. And guess what? You'll get interrupted. You can talk as long as you want, baby. I be talking for an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and a half, 30 minutes straight by myself sometimes. And I find the answers that I needed. I tell myself what I needed to hear. Because even though sometimes we have our people that, we love to talk to and we enjoy talking with and have so much fun on the phone with, sometimes they don't say the things that we need to hear, and we're going to them so that we can. You have to be able to be that voice for yourself. You can't rely on people fill those emotional voids that you're running from. It's very normal to be on the phone, be like, holy crap, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, what the heck, and the conversation's just so good. But when you find that it's something that you have to have in order to be emotionally regulated, it's because your nervous system is being regulated conditionally to the conversations that you're having, and it's not being regulated by yourself. Again, this is that part of isolating and the avoidance aspect of not dealing with how you feel head on. Eating releases dopamine. Alcohol affects neurotransmitters that temporarily reduce anxiety and increase feelings of relaxation. And so it helps cope with feeling stressful, overwhelmed, emotional, and it's a way to fill that void. You kind of numb it with the snacks, with the cookies, with the chips. Taking a family size bag of chips to the head, that's when you are trying to fill this void in yourself. And that could be a sign of a binge eating disorder. I'm not here to try to diagnose you, but I know that that's something that I have just come to terms with, and it's not something that I'm claiming like, oh, I have this. It's something that I'm overcoming actively, and I'm very proud of how I've been overcoming that. But when you have reasons like what we've gone through about why you're isolating, and you need that time to just be away from the world, and you're still not facing yourself, and when you're just to yourself, it's a lot. Cannabis, nicotine, other whatever substances. I'm not promoting these things. These things help mask a lot of worries or thoughts by helping somebody who can't relax finally relax. Problem is that these things provide temporary relief, but it keeps us from exploring healthier coping mechanisms and healthier ways to deal with what it is that we're going through. And it becomes this reliance on something that's as easy as a switch. I can just scroll, I can just take an edible. So these coping mechanisms are easy to just keep going to over and over again. But the problem is that it just keeps us stuck. It keeps us in the familiar. It keeps us from really exploring new ways that are healthier to overcome the challenges that we're facing. So you have a choice right now. You have the choice to keep doing what you're doing, to wait for it to feel good and the right time and safe to get out of isolation, or you have the choice to show up for yourself, to address what is going on. I keep on saying that, to stop running from yourself and just to finally acknowledge how you've been doing. I say bridge the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be. If you find yourself, this is a whole other topic, but if you find yourself holding on to the past version of you, I have definitely gone through that, my fair share of just wanting to be her again. Bridge the gap between her and the you are now. And if that's not you, bridge the gap between the you that you are right now and the you that you want to be. And so bridging that gap, when I say that, it means make peace with this you. Make peace with the you that you are today. You deserve to have empathy for everything you've gone through. You deserve to have full understanding for why you've been making the choices that you've had, and have some humility for yourself. Be okay with being real with how you've been showing up and how you've not been showing up, how you have been a poor friend, how you've been poor to yourself. Sit with yourself and just be present. Talk to yourself. There are so many versions of you that need you. put yourself first. Tend to yourself. How can you swap scrolling? Do you need to take a social media break? How can you swap those FaceTime calls? Can you sit and video diary, try it, or journal? Is this me showing up as that version of her, or is it me delaying that? Because I don't want to delay that version of me anymore. So that's what I constantly, that's why I show up the way that I'm showing up, because I think about how I want to bridge the gap between me and her. I want to keep inching closer to her. I don't want to keep having to go through this. Sometimes we're just not ready. But if you wait to be ready, you will never be ready. You have to want what it is that you keep on picturing. When you think of this dream version of yourself, this dream life, it is not just some like fancy vision. Like, it is something that you can actually obtain. I literally created my dream life from visions turned into actions, turned into holy shit, this is my reality. You know, I've gone through a lot myself. Aligning with the vision of you that you want to be feels so far. It feels like a lot of work. It feels like a huge task. It feels like a lot. But it is a moment by moment choice. Every moment we have decisions to make. When you say you want something and the next day you don't show up for that the way you said you would, that's a choice. But then when you do, and the more you keep choosing the choice that is going to be so beneficial for you, the better about yourself you're going to feel. The more you're going to trust yourself, the more you're going to feel safe with yourself and be okay with being real and honest with yourself. You can have a gradual transition from where you've been into like transitioning to something that is more like helpful and going to help ease you into your next chapter, so that it's not like hot to cold. In the next video in this series, we're going to dive deep into using like isolation for good, so that when you step out of it, you're emerge a completely different version of yourself. I'm doing it right now. I'm becoming that testimony, and it's pretty amazing how quick I shifted in just 5 days. And by day 7, it's just like, wow. And the days keep progressing, you know, and I'm pretty deep in, and I can't wait to share that with you. So we've covered the many reasons on why people isolate and why you might be isolating, coping mechanisms that are, you know, normal in doses, but very toxic and unhealthy for ourselves when we overindulge. And then we talked about making the choice and just now being a step closer, having the awareness. So if you've enjoyed this video, give this video a thumbs up if you feel seen, or if you just want to support this channel and help other people who are like you, who are isolating, find this video, hit that thumbs up button. It helps my channel so much. And if you want to go that extra mile, leave a comment in the description box. Leave a comment. I would love to hear about your journey of isolating, where you are in that journey right now, what you plan on doing next. And if I said anything that really resonated, I'd love to hear about it. So I love talking about, you know, mental health and growth and the relationships that we have with people in general, and, you know, wellness, you know, taking care of our body, our, you know, mind, our soul, like our physical well-being and all that stuff. Like, that's really what I'm all about. I'm also a model. Maybe you recognize me, maybe you don't. I can't wait to chat with you in the comments. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos, and so that you can see when the next video uploads on this series. I love you, bestie. Bye.